G'day and welcome to a Down Under Yarn. My name is Fiona, also known as Fifykins. If you find someone called Fifykins on the web, 99% of the time it's me. Otherwise, I'm Ms. Fifykins. So there you go. Please feel free to check out my online activities. I will give you a warning, especially after the last 24 hours. My Twitter account is fairly political. I am involved in politics on a local level here in Cairns. And I get passionate at times. I am not going to really address politics in this episode, except for a tiny teensy bit later on, because I need something to divert my attention. The last 24 hours have been quite challenging for me. If you haven't caught up on the news, politics in Australia is a crazy game. And yeah, let's just leave it at that. Anyway, welcome to people who are checking me out for the first time, and a special welcome to those who are coming back. And yes, it's fantastic we can spend this time together having a yarn. We do have a Ravelry group, which is called A Down Under Yarn. Please feel free to come and join us there. I think we're almost at 200 members, which is pretty exciting. There is also another Ravelry group that is just there for the moment called Solar Flare Fibres, which is for my business, which is in the process of getting off the ground, and I will have more on that later. The week that was. It hasn't actually been too bad a week. I think when I recorded last time I was in the middle of jet lag. My sleep's all over the place at the moment. But it's been an interesting week. I put Jasper on a plane on Saturday, His father's been down south doing some work for a few months, and it's school holidays here. The kids get 2 weeks off now, their winter break, and I thought, his father asked to spend time with him, and I no trouble with that at all. I think it's fantastic that he wants to spend time with him. But getting him there, he's living in a town which is halfway between Melbourne and Adelaide. So it's I'd say it's probably about 5 hours from either city. And getting Jasper there was interesting. My mum, of course, is in Melbourne. So Jasper flew down and spent a couple of nights with my mum. And then they met up with some mutual friends. And then Jasper's dad met up with them there and then went back. So it's been a bit complicated. I think Jasper's coming back next Wednesday in time for my birthday, which is next Thursday. Yes, Little Miss Independence here. My birthday is Independence Day. So I believe everyone in America has fireworks for my birthday, which I'm very, very proud of. And one year I really, really would like to spend my birthday in America because I think it would be an absolute hoot. Anyway, so part of the issue was that Jasper's dad, I don't think, could afford the airfare. And of course I can't afford the airfare, so he approached my mother to pay. Let's just step past that for the moment and just let that one go through to the keeper because there's no point dwelling on that. So did that. Mum then booked, knowing that he's coming back with Jasper next week to pack up his stuff here because he's going back down there, even though we don't know how long for. Mum booked on one of the cheaper airlines, which I have no problems with, except their stipulation of unaccompanied minors. The other two airlines, their stipulation is 12 years old. If they're over 12, they can fly as an unaccompanied minor. The airline that Mum chose says they have to be in high school. Now, in parts of Queensland, parts of Queensland, to be in high school, you have to be in year 8. Certain private schools have a fantastic system where they do half of year 7 in primary school and the second half in high school. Jasper's school doesn't do that, and I don't think that would be recognised by this airline. Down south in Victoria, where Jasper was flying to, high school is year 7. Same age, nothing to do with that. It's just the way that this education system is organised, and Queensland is reforming. So I think the year after next, kids in year 7 will be in high school. It's a long history of education in Queensland and the way things have been done. So that's how it is. So I get to the airport. Fortunately, I get there early. because it says you've got to be there, you've got to be checked in, I think, 40 minutes before your flight. I always try and allow an hour. And I was there, just a bit before an hour, and there was no one there, which is great. And I get there and she said, have you got any ID in Jasper's name? And I said, I got the Medicare card. And she goes, no, it doesn't have his date of birth. Has he got his school card? And he goes, I don't have a school card. Because he doesn't. They actually get that in high school. And technically he's not in high school. And I said, no. And I said, well, I'll need a birth certificate. They said, how old are you? And he says, 12 and a half. I said, well, I'll need a birth certificate to prove that. And I said, and they said, look, can you go home and get one? We'll hold his bag here and leave things open for you. You've really got 25 minutes to do that. Where do you live? And I said, Earlville. And they said, look, you'll probably just get there and back. And I'm thinking, if I catch every traffic light, I'll get home as long as I can get there. And I'm thinking, I know exactly where his passport is. I'll grab that. Tore home, tore upstairs, texted my mother that we were never flying that effing airline again because I was so angry at this stage. I had to pay to get out of the car park. I had to, all the fuel and everything. Pick up his passport, race back to the airport. And then she was a little bit patronising. She goes, oh, see, I knew you could do it. I'm thinking, it's not about whether or not I could do it. It was, I said to them, I'll sign a stat deck saying that he's 12 and a half. No problems with that at all. And I have a friend who works for the airline, but he wasn't on the desk that day. I think if he was there on the desk, things may have been different. However, they wouldn't have been later on. I thought that was probably the end of it. We go through security, trying to explain to a 12-year-old that a laptop out doesn't mean the laptop that he put in its case inside his backpack with everything on top. He can just pull it out and put it in his case. And the scanners people say you have to take it out of the thing. Oh, do I? Jasper, you're going to have to learn that if someone in authority says, do this, someone in authority says jump, you have to say how high. You don't say, do I have to really? Anyway, so we get that. We get through. We had planned once we got there that I was going to get him a drink and a muffin. I said, right, quickly, your flight's about to board. Let's get you something to eat. So he wanted a burger from Hungry Jack's. Yeah. So went there, got him that. And his flight's boarding. He's one of the last people to get there. And the stewardess goes, he needs his passport. And now he can't actually take his passport with him because there's a court order that says that I'm to keep hold of the passports at all times unless the children are flying with their school. So I knew he wasn't allowed to take it with him. Anyway, family politics, you got to love it. So he goes, I need my passport. So I show them and I said, oh, it doesn't show that he's in high school. And he goes, but, and I said, the lady at the desk when we checked in said, who did you speak to? So I described her. No, that could be so-and-so. It could be so-and-so. Let's just ring the desk anyway. And I'd given a fairly accurate description. And someone goes, no, it's obviously so-and-so. She's the only one with that feature. And it was something to do with her hair that I'd talked about. She had a long fringe. And the reason I noticed it, because she had glasses and it sat exactly on top of her glasses perfectly. And I thought, how awesome is that? But she must have to trim it every week. That's what I thought. Anyway, so then they said, I'm sorry, unless you can prove he's in high school, he's not allowed to fly. And I'm thinking, okay, this is really a semantic because technically he's not in high school here, but he would be down south. I hadn't looked at what the regulations were at this stage, and I knew it was 12 years old for both the other airlines. So I said, right, okay. And they said to him, can you log into your school account? Will that say? And I said, yeah, Jasper. And he goes, yeah, okay. So he logs into his school account, which is just his email account. And I said, okay, there we are. There's an email from one of his teachers about his science assignment. There's an email from another teacher about a history assignment. Fortunately, even though Jasper's in year 7, they do have other teachers that teach different parts of the curriculum. They don't travel between classrooms. The teachers travel to them, but that's how it works. And I thought that might be enough. No, because the 2 didn't actually say it was going to Jasper. It said it was going to JC whatever his number is, which is his student number, which is how all the emails are addressed, and just said, dear class. They weren't going to, the hostesses weren't going to accept that. I lost it. I totally lost myself. And I said, are you going to let my son on this plane, or are you going to deprive him access to his father? And they're saying, no, it's just regulations. I said, look, I understand that. I was told that if I had a birth certificate or passport that proved he was over 12 years old, that was okay. Oh, we have to know he's in high school. I said, and he has shown you this email here. The manager's on her way. I said, well, that is good. So the manager walks along. She could see there was a bit of a situation. I think Jasper was the last one to board the plane. And she said, you've got his emails there. You've got his passport. That's fine. Off you go, mate. Have a great time. Don't forget your boarding pass. You're going to need that for your seat. I said, thank you very much. And she goes, not a problem. It's all good. And I'm thinking, it was only one of the hostesses that it was a problem for. The other one's trying to solve problems. She saw the email. She said, that's fine. I'm thinking, what if I homeschooled the kid? What would I have had to have done? They asked me, first Saturday of school holidays, if the school might be open and we might be able to get something on letterhead. I said, I'm sorry. They were willing to delay that flight, to take his bags off the plane because he had checked baggage, because they didn't know. And I thought, as a parent, I wouldn't let my child fly unaccompanied if I didn't feel they were responsible enough. But still. Sorry, so there's my rant about that. So then I had and I said to my mum afterwards, I said, look, I looked at the regulations and theoretically, they probably shouldn't have taken him. However, they should have told us that originally, and they didn't. And she's like, anyway. He's down there, he's with his dad, he seems to be having a good time, except he's freezing. He said he didn't realise how cold it was, and Mum said that she didn't realise he'd feel the cold so much. And he had his pyjamas that he took down, which is a t-shirt and boxers that he usually wears as pyjamas. Mum said after the first night where he ended up sleeping in his tracksuit, she went and bought him flannelette pyjamas, a dressing gown and slippers, and that night he slept in his flannelette pyjamas, his dressing gown, thick socks. He had a doona on the bed and 2 blankets and still complained he was cold. So this is a child who's lived in the tropics since he was 2 and just doesn't understand the cold. Plus Melbourne was freezing. He reckons Narracourt's pretty cold as well. But he's loving putting wood on the fire, and I'm pretty jealous that he's able to do that because I love putting wood on the fire myself. Anyway, so there was that. On Sunday, then the local fibre crafters, which is the Old Spinners and Weavers Guild, they meet at the Cairns Showgrounds, and I've been going along to their meetings to learn how to spin. So I get an email saying, the pack-ups come early, we have to do it on Sunday, can anyone come and help? Now, they meet at the showgrounds, and the area they meet in, the barn they meet in, has to be used for the show, which is coming up at the end of July. Usually they have until the end of June to get out, which is tomorrow, but they've been doing works there. When I actually went there to try and go there on Friday, there was no one there, and I thought they're probably still meeting off-site, so I was planning on emailing someone anyway. Anyway, so I had to go and help them on Sunday, which meant I was able to pick up a spinning wheel, but getting everything packed up into this tiny sort of shed area at the back of the barn, which is all locked up and everything, was interesting, especially when you're being guided by people who've done it before so many times, who know what they're doing, which is fantastic, but have their own ways of doing it. And when you get people who are older, who have limitations, who then try and organise things and want them done because they know these ways are done well, but have trouble at times explaining why they're done that way, it can prove challenging for people who are coming in. Anyway, I was able to pick up a wheel, so I have an Ashford Traditional sitting in my lounge room. I had fights with it on Tuesday night, I think it was, the first time, because it hadn't been used. It's not the one I've been using, because this is a single driver. It's not the double tension thingo that you can do, which is the one that I was using, which I think is the one they're taking to the show because it works really well. So they basically gave me a wheel, and they gave me another bag of the beautiful dyed fibre that I've been learning with, that they don't actually know what fibre it is, that someone got and washed and carded and dyed themselves. So I've been using that, and I had to work out, I wanted to see how, pardon, excuse me, sorry, I've had a bit of a cough all week as well. Mimo wanted to see how the spinning wheel worked, and he said it's amazing engineering, and we're going about the engineering. It took me a while to actually get the settings right so that it would actually go. And then after a while, the bobbin stopped spinning, and I didn't know what was happening. And then I put it away for a bit, went back to it, tweaked a few knobs. I didn't really know what I was doing, and it seems to be working okay, and that's really all that matters. I'm looking forward to getting through this bag of fibre, because then I'm going to say to them, look, I've got some fibre of my own. I'd really like to try that. So yeah. And the other thing is Mimmel has his big exam on Saturday. He is a foreign trained doctor, and therefore to get full registration in Australia, he has to sit a series of exams to prove that he has the competency of an Australian medical graduate. He graduated from medical school 1996, I think, 1995, 1996, but still has to prove almost 20 years later that he has the competencies. He's employed, he's still employed, just the visa he's on, which is a skilled migration visa, will expire, and unless he has full registration, it means that he has to sit these exams. They cost a lot of money. He sat one last year at short notice and didn't read any of the prescribed reading materials because he'd been a doctor for 15 years plus and failed. And then the feedback they gave was next to useless. And he had trouble understanding until he spoke to someone, and they said, well, yeah, they need to know that, yes, you do know how to diagnose a heart attack, but at the same time they need to know that you know how to prescribe the relevant treatment. Apart from this being a moot point, that an Australian medical graduate, yes, they would graduate and be thrown into a hospital emergency department and be greeted with someone with a heart attack. But one of the first things they would say is, let me get my supervisor who will double check this. Anyway, so the exam covers lots of areas of medicine. There's 20 stations, 16, I believe, 20 stations, 4 arrest stations, 4 actually aren't marked. Of the 12 that are marked, you have to pass, there's, I think, 2 or 3 paediatrics and 2 or 3 obstetrics gynecology. You have to pass at least one of each of those stations to actually pass overall. So, can I just remind myself next week when I record and turn off my screensaver because it keeps flicking to that. Anyway, so he's got to do that exam. So he's been busy studying this week, and he's actually been reading the prescribed materials, which is great, and going through stuff with me. So I'd be sitting there knitting, and he'll say, oh, here's a good one, and he'll read something out, and often they're the ethics questions, and we get into big debates about them and things like that. And he knows his stuff, so he should pass. He's flying down to Brisbane tomorrow. I'm staying here. I'd love to go down, but I just can't afford it at the moment. So I'm hoping that this is going to be the end of it. If he passes this exam, he gets general registration. He then can apply for full Australian residency and then in 2 years become an Australian citizen. That is the path that he is taking at the moment. Things can change and there are other options, but this is the option that suits him at the moment, and it's the option that he's taking. He needs to sit the exams anyway and get general registration in order to be part of the training program. He's now had 7 years here, where he believed when he first came he'd be part of the training program and by now would be a fully fledged psychiatrist. He is not part of the training program yet. He will get some accreditation for the work he has done, but it's all legalities and it's all the practicalities of it all. And it won't happen overnight, but it will happen and it will be worth it. Okay, now, oh yes, the other thing. People started mentioning last week, I am behind in my podcasts a bit. I think I have 10 hours of podcasts to watch and or listen to. Pardon me. People mentioned last week that Blip has started sending out emails to people saying, I'm sorry, but you're not what we're looking for anymore. It seems Blip is going more for the TV series style thing. So if you want to create something each week that's full of action and intrigue and mystery and perhaps a bit of soap opera, hey, looks like that's what they want. But they don't want people to sit there and talk about their knitting, which is an absolute shame. I have been doing a lot of research on alternatives because the alternative I'm using I'm outgrowing quite rapidly. My monthly bill for Amazon, which is where I host my files, they have enough hosting. It's the streaming that costs money because people keep watching me, which is fantastic, and I have absolutely no problem with that. Each month the cost is creeping up. and it's now to the point where it's not proving economical. So I am going to be moving to something else. So the research I did, I put into a blog post. So if you go to the blog, which is fifikins.com, which also is, by the way, where you'll find show notes for this episode this week, you will see a blog post there, which I will link in the show notes, which is quite bizarre because it will have at the top that the previous blog post was Get Blipped, I think, which is what I called it, or Alternative Hosts or whatever it was. But there is that there. If you are finding that Blip is sending you a letter saying we're not going to host your podcast anymore, I am going to look into the wonderful Megan from Stockinet Zombies has done some research on linking from YouTube. My understanding is that YouTube doesn't display the byte rate for the videos, and iTunes requires the byte rate in order to process it into iTunes podcastable format. Megan thinks she's found a way around it. So if that is the case, that would be fantastic for people, and that would be an option. I know myself, I'd rather watch podcasts on Downcast. I like having them all there to have a record of what I need to watch. I also watch most of them at time and a half because I get through them. I slow them down from time to time. If there are bits that I want to go, I go back and rewatch segments and things like that. But that's just how I do it. And I justify that by saying that it means I can watch more podcasts. There's more and more podcasts each week that I discover. And I'd love to be able to watch everyone's all the time. Sometimes, though, I just find I'm too far behind. I'll draw a line in the sand and say, I'll read through show notes and I'll say, look, I really want to see something about that. Let me watch this one. I'm going to keep that there. I might go back and watch that segment, or else I might just have to mark it as read, mark it as watched. So that's just how I work. So there's that there. But let's get on to some knitting. I thought this was going to be a really short episode. Probably the knitting part now is going to be short, and that blabble part wasn't. Anyway, finished objects. I have finished objects galore. Well, not really, but you know. I finished my hitchhiker. Haven't actually woven in my ends or blocked it, but here it is in all its glory. I ended up getting 40 points. I think it was 40, might have been 41, can't remember, I think it was 40, which I was really, really thrilled with, out of a skein of sugar maple sock yarn from Heather of Highland Handmaids. I just love it. I think the colours are just absolutely perfect for a hitchhiker. As you can see there, the flashes of blue and yellow that are interspersed in there, I find this magical and just absolutely adore it. For this length, it is good. It is a good length. Saying again, I haven't blocked it yet, but I can put it there. There is the first point there with the tail going down there. I've got more points coming down there. It's nice and warm. It's great. So there is that finished. I, of course, did most of that knitting whilst I was away. So it has a pretty significant meaning for me, this project as well. I used 3.25mm needles because that's what I had with me, and like the fabric that I got. The skein I used was quite oversized. I did wind the excess into a tiny mini skein here. Pardon me. Sorry for those with headphones on, I do know what it's like. And I believe I weighed that and it was about 6.5 grams. So it'll be enough to do a square on a blanket, which I'm also really happy with. I don't think it would have been enough to do one more point. So that's how much I have left. Fantastic colourways. It is the prime colourway as well. And I just love this yarn, and I just love the dye job that Heather was able to achieve. It's probably my favourite Highland Handmaids colour. Not that I'm a Highland Handmaids expert, but I just love it and would love to have a pair of socks in this and use it for everything. I want to knit all the things in this colour, except for all the other colours that I love as well. The other finished object is this one here, which is a Celtic heart knot, which I turned into a necklace. Now let me just get this a bit straighter, because I knotted this at night. I'll put it like that. you can kind of see that it's a heart. But yeah, there. This is a free pattern on Ravelry. I attached a little toggle at the top. I probably should have used a bigger one, but I've used that one. And it is for a gift for a friend. I'm sending off a birthday package for a birthday swap. If you're my birthday swap partner and watching, I'm really sorry if I've just spoiled this for you. I don't think you're watching, but I really should have thought before I just did that. So my apologies. I might go through and put a little thing in there, I think. Sorry! Anyway, this is an I-cord necklace. It is made... Here, I'm getting sleepy. It is made out of Cascade Heritage Silk. It is the charcoal colourway, which has a big number. It is basically the grey, and it's the grey I used in both in my Stephen West knit along last year, which was the Rockefeller, and also my Daybreak, which I had quite a bit left over. It's the Heritage Silk. It's really lovely, nice drape, and I used my I-cord maker for the first time. It's probably not perfect, but it's good. I'm actually off to another friend's birthday tomorrow evening. I'm going out for dinner, and I'm going to make her one of these, so you won't get to see it. I think I'm going to use the same yarn. Yeah, it's just something a bit different, and I quite like it. So I did put the clasp in because I didn't want a Kitchener I-cord, but it's a nice length. It's hard to do there. There we are. So it's a nice length. Yeah. So that is that. And I'm planning, because I've now got the I-cord maker, and it works pretty well, and it's dash dash, and this used 4 grams, which was about 20 yards. Every 20 yards counts. Okay, children, Ninja. I am planning to do a few more because of the... Sorry, I'm just typing my password in again from my screensaver. I'm planning to do a few more for the craft sale they have at the end of the year. This is the only month where it's you can choose what you do. Last month I think was last month was crocheting the top of hand towels, and the month before that was pin cushions they wanted people to do. But I figure if I can do a whole lot of these, it took me about 20 minutes really, which is almost criminal, I feel. But if I can do a whole lot of these in some leftover sock weight yarn, it's a good idea. The knot itself is not difficult to do. I would prefer a video. I'm a visual learner, and even with photos and descriptions, it took me a few goes to actually get the knot right. But still, really, really like this. The Celtic Heart knot, which I turned into a necklace. Perhaps if I turn it around that way, you get a bit more of it. It's hard to see. Okay, moving into works in progress. My Camp Loopy project. I have a hoe. I have one sock that is finished. I just need to finish the other one. I now have 4 days. Yesterday was lost to politics for me, which was silly. I should have just been knitting, and I probably would be feeling a lot better and a lot happier than some of the stuff I was reading. I'm trying this for the first time with the Houdini sock, which is a cat boardy sock, and I'm sold. I think all my self-striped socks now are going to be this pattern. It's hard to, when you read through it, when I first read through it, I'm thinking, oh, I don't know. But let me just give you an example. I'll give you a description of how you do it. Sorry, description. Judy's Magic Cast On. Okay, I cast on 14 stitches. I have a wide foot. I increased to 72. Because I did that, I usually do 14. I did 12 for my other socks, and I figured that toes just that tiny bit tapered. You knit to where, if adding another duplicate decrease, will give you the length for your foot. So because I knew I was decreasing to 14 stitches again, I was able to measure from there to there and subtract that from my foot. Now, I prefer a bit of negative ease in my foot length on my socks, otherwise I feel they bunch up a bit. I'm also going to mention here, because there's possibly someone else out there who, like me, when I first started my knitting, didn't understand what ease was. I can remember when I got my first lots of yarn and I was looking for projects, I saw positive ease listed as an attribute in the Ravelry Advanced search. I would tick positive ease because I thought it meant it was an easy project. Ease is the fit of the project. Ease is the fit of the garment. I know that now. I didn't know it then, and I thought I'd admit that in case there's anyone else out there, which there probably isn't because I'm pretty special at times, who doesn't necessarily understand the concept of ease. So ease is the fit of the garment. Just let me quickly write another note down. I have to put in my things to mention in a minute. What was it? Anyway, sorry. Okay, so I have a 10-inch foot. I wear a size 41, which is about a size 10 Australian, but I prefer my socks to be about 9.5 inches long. I have one sock which is a perfect 10-inch long. It's probably a little bit more, and I just find it inconvenient fit. Whereas the other one I have, which is I think 8.5 or 9, actually fits really well, but I prefer that little bit of extra so that my toes aren't pushing constantly against the sock at the end. So, okay, so you've knit yourself a footprint, basically. That's what Cat Bordy calls it. You've knit a tube that is sealed at both ends because your kitchen at this end, which I still haven't woven in that end. Pardon me. You cast on down here, you knit down, and you've got a footprint. Then you do an afterthought leg. Now, you can put in yarn. There's nothing wrong with that. However, Cat Bordy recommends not putting in waste yarn and doing a true afterthought. Okay, so there you are. You can see that there. I went. I'm going to show you on this side as it's easier. For that blue stripe there, I went sort of down the middle, but I kind of miscalculated. You put one needle up one side, leave a row, put the other needle down the other side. I used the cable and then you snip. Now I set that up and I plurked that I was about to snip and I was really nervous. So I went and checked Ravelry and I left some comments on people's projects and I went through some of my Rev messages, but not all of them. I went through some of the Ravelry boards and left some witty messages and I went back and checked Plurk and I checked Twitter and I checked Facebook and watched an episode of Game of Thrones. And that's the home phone and I don't answer the home phone usually. Checked Game of Thrones and then went and snipped because I was really worried about snipping my yarn. And snipped it in the middle and started unravelling and it seemed to be going okay, and I obviously snipped in the right place. I only snipped through one layer, and my phone's around here somewhere. If they've rung that phone, it tells them to ring my mobile, which they might do, so I'm just going to pop that on silent. And there goes that phone ringing. They can leave a message, it's a private number. Anyway, and then when you unravel though, this is the ingenious part that beats putting in waste yarn. When you unravel, you can see there where I've joined, I just need to weave that in as well. When you unravel, you leave the last 2 or 3 stitches still attached so that when you knit around, the yarn is there giving reinforcement, which means there are no holes whatsoever. You don't have to pick up extra stitches and then decrease or anything. I just find this amazing. It also meant I was able to weigh my ball. I lost 1.5 yards by getting to there and wanting to go back to the blue. I was able to pick up, weigh my ball when I got to there at the top. When I was doing the ribbing, calculate how much I'd probably need, how many stripes for the ribbing, and then cast off. I did Jenny's surprisingly stretchy bind off for the first time, which has worked pretty well. Doesn't look like much when it's like that, I suppose, but once it's around the leg, I think it looks fine. I have no problems with it at all, and I do have to weave in ends, of course. I have exactly 50 grams left on my little scales for this. Now, I weighed this on my big scales, which aren't as accurate as my mini scales. Mini scales, which I call my drug scales, which I don't actually use for weighing out drugs because drugs are bad, and I don't do drugs. But my kitchen scales measure in 100 gram increments, I think. Or was it 5 gram increments? No, 1 gram increments. Whereas my mini scales, I think think they're called jewellery scales. I think that's a polite term for them, which I use for my dyes as well, weigh in 0.1 of a gram. So I have exactly 50.1 grams of this left. And I have ended in a spot where I can cast on and I hope end up with matching socks, or fairly matching. If they don't match, I'm going to live with it. I think. So yeah, that has to be done by Sunday night, which shouldn't be a problem. I'll get that finished over the weekend, and I'll have a matching pair of socks. Now this is for Camp Loopy. You had to use a yarn you'd never used before. I chose Biscotti SC, and the colourway is Amwala Cocoa. Now when I look at it from there, I think, okay, it is a blue stripe and a green stripe with a yellow stripe in between, because that's what it kind of looks like, except for that there. When you look up close, you see the ingenuity of the dye job. That probably shows it fairly well. If it would focus a bit better for you, okay. So it actually goes from the blue into a bit of green, into the yellow, into an orange, into the pink, into the orange, into the yellow, into the green, into the blue. And the orange and the green offset the yellow and make the yellow just pop. And when you see photos of it, that's what you notice. But when you look up close, it's really like a rainbow. And I really love that. I think it is really beautifully dyed yarn. And if you are looking for some yarn to do some self-striping socks, I do recommend Biscotte SC. Which is available through the Loopy U. And I'm sure you can probably get it in other places too, but of course I got this from the Loopy U for Camp Loopy. So that is the only thing I've been working on. It's the only thing I'm going to work on until Sunday, except I have 2 blanket squares for another project I'm doing for someone else that need to be done ASAP. And they've been full of fail. The first 2 that I've tried have just failed. The first one I tried, which was going to look okay. First of all, I cast on too many stitches, and when I cast on the right number of stitches, it was taking forever because of the actual stitch that I was doing. And I thought this is a bit silly, so I ripped that out. The second one, I thought I'll just cast on that number of stitches, and when I'd knit an inch, I'm doing 10-inch squares, it was only 8 inches across, and I stretched it out to 10 inches, which I could block it out to 10, but it's going to look really crappy. So I've ripped that out again, and I'm going to cast on extra stitches for that. I'm doing a Chinese waves dishcloth pattern on that square, and because it is I'm tired, and you can probably tell, because it is a fairly easy slip stitch pattern, which is almost like an Eye of Partridge, except there's no purling involved. It goes fairly quickly. So all I have to do is cast on an extra 10 stitches or so. That'll be fine. Get that one whipped out. The second one I'm going to do is going to be fairly lacy. Get that one done as well, then I can get those in the post. And I really want to get that done soon. I'm off to a wedding on Saturday week, which I'm really, really looking forward to. Except I was going to need a cushion for it, and I haven't even started. It's going to be knit on, I think it's an 8-ply or 10-ply that I've got here. I know what I'm going to do. I just have to hope that I can get that done. So if I get this Camp Loopy out of the way, get the squares done, get this other project done, then I can get on to some other stuff. Get back to my cursed cable socks. My socks, I always knit my socks on 2.5mm needles. I quite like the fabric I get from it. It's not too tight, but it's not too loose either. I do have a wide foot. I cast on 72 stitches, getting 8 stitches to the inch, even though that is fairly negative ease. I like the way it stretches around my leg and stays up because of the it's not too loosey-goosey. So that works for me, but as with all knitting, use what needle fits you and use what gauge suits you as well. Acquisitions. I meant to show this last week, and I forgot. I was part of the Skein Yarn Club. I think it was June, or it may have been May. The Skein now for the Yarn Club has a monthly Yarn Club. Their sign-ups are usually open, I think it's the first Monday of the month or the last Monday of the month or something. go to the Skein website. I will link it for details because it is awesome and you should always get Skein. You can never have too much Skein. This sign up came just after my incident where the dog ate my homework. The dog ate my skein of Skein and I'd been unwinding it, which I still haven't finished unwinding it. I need to get into the Zen mode where I can do that. I've undone half of it, so I've got half of that to go. And of course it's the merino cashmere fingering. And this came and there was that offering. So I ordered some. It's amazing. You know when you go for a club and you don't know what colourway you're going to be getting, and when it comes you go, wow. And it's either a wow that I would never have thought to order that and it's really beautiful, or I would have ordered that. I think this is one of those, I probably would have ordered this colour because it really is just beautiful. This is called Opal Cove. It is the merino cashmere fingering. It's probably a little bit greener than what's showing on screen, but it does have the flashes of blue through it, the little browny bits as well. If I come back here, it might be a little bit more accurate. Sort of. I mean, it really is a gorgeous colour. And I could make a pillow out of this space. It really is lovely. You can only get it through the Skein website now. Fantastic. 437 yards, 80% merino, 20% cashmere. It has to be washed by hand, which I would be doing anyway. And this will become a shawl because it is just luscious. It is beautiful. Okay, anyway, my other acquisition is the World Traveller Yarn Club for Yarn versus Zombies. Now, my original package, I think, ended up going around the world. It went on a world travel, and Kiki has been absolutely amazing, and I have the package here now. Anyway, this is it. I think this is back from March, April, May, one of those months. Anyway, it is just gorgeous. This is called Pygmy Possum, which is a possum from the Australian Alpine region, native possum. And these are the colours, and I love it. It's beautiful. It's a tonal yarn for all the light browns and the oranges, and really lovely. I think I'm actually I don't know if I'm going to do a hat with this because it might be too light for me, but it might not be for other people. So I was surprised when they saw me in a VKN recently and they didn't realise I was actually blonde. I need to really have my hair done again, but yes, I am blonde. Either that, or I might become socks. Do some more socks from Memo in this. I don't know if I want to though. It is the Bite Me base, which is 75% superwash BFL, 25% nylon, 400 yards. Just really gorgeous, really, really lovely. And as always, Kiki's done an amazing job. So, this was going to be a short episode. I'm sorry, I've babbled. This week, Tour de Fleece starts. I'm planning on taking part, and I'm going to say to my lovely ladies at the fibre barn that yes, I've got some fibre myself, and I'm going to try and use that now. I'm going to start using some of that. Thank you very much for the generous fibre you've been letting me use, but I'm going to use this and see if when I get some yarn that's not full of little nups or noops or whatever you want to call them throughout the fibre, if that helps my spinning. Entries for the Cairns show close tomorrow, and they want me to enter some knitting. You know, competitions at school I was never good at, and I don't know if I really want to enter it, but they want me to, so I'm going to just throw in a couple of shawls, I think. We'll see. I'm not entering it to win, I'm entering it because it's a show and I can show other people what is possible, especially with some yarn that was not purchased locally. I know a lot of things I've seen there in the past have been from yarn that people have purchased from Spotlight. So yeah, hey, it is what it is. This will just be something different. Anyway, I have my spinning wheel, of course, so I will be doing that. I'm on the lookout. My tax return is going to come sometime in July, and it's going to be a really good one because I only worked for half the year, so they took out at least twice as much tax as what they should have. I was looking at the calculator before, and my tax rate is actually going to drop quite dramatically. So the amount of tax that has been removed from my earnings for the 6 months I was working, I probably get 2/3 of that back. So I'm looking at a really good tax return. I'm going to use a lot of that for start up in the business, But apart from that, I want to buy a spinning wheel. If you'd asked me 2 months ago where the Australian dollar was at least at parity with the US dollar, I was going to look at a ladybug or perhaps a Lendrum. There were a couple of people in Australia who had them, and I'm still hoping to get to the Bendigo Fibre Festival, Bendigo Wool Show, in July, and I was thinking I'll try them out there. Now that the Australian dollar has started going down, which is what our economists wanted, the Australian dollar had apparently been overvalued for a while. It's now down to 92 US cents. It means that it's less economical for me to look at the American Canadian wheels. And I need to go back to looking at New Zealand wheels. And I need to justify, I want a wheel that is transportable, so I can take it to spinning each week. I can take it interstate when I travel. But the Ashford ones that are like that, I know are very low, and I'm a tall person. I'm 5'9", and I don't want to be sitting at a little stool just so I can get lower down near the orifice. So we'll see. I'll try out some wheels, see what happens. I think I'd be silly looking at Magicraft when I'm a beginning spinner. Ashford has a great range of wheels, but hey, we'll see. We'll see what happens. There may be some people at the Bendigo Sheep and Fibre Festival who have some ladybugs they have in stock. I was looking at websites earlier in the week, and the person that was stocking them has nothing in stock at the moment. Whether or not she's got some coming in for the Fibre Festival, and if there's any deals, I don't know. So we'll wait and see. Shop news, very, very briefly. I have the paperwork that I've been slowly filling out for the New Enterprise Initiative scheme, which I am applying for, which would be fantastic. Mimmel surprised me earlier in the week. He finally got his tax in from last year and got his tax return, so gave me some money and said, this is for you to buy your first lot of yarn, which was just lovely. So I've been able to put in an order. So I've put in an order for some yarn. That is winding its way to me. I don't know when it's going to arrive, possibly 6 to 10 working days, which probably means 2 to 3 weeks, knowing us here. That's very, very exciting. I've got all sorts of colourways. I did mention I wasn't going to talk politics. However, I have one colourway that is in germination, I suppose, at the moment. I've been playing around with some of the samples I've dyed up and looking at those and then thinking about how I can tweak them. I'm going to dye up a colourway called Julia, which I am going to gift to our former Prime Minister, who is a knitter, and is going to be inspired by her fiery passion, her beautiful orangey red hair and her amazing green eyes, and that is going to be dyed up. It's going to be one of the colourways in my shop. Buy it or not, I really don't care. I don't care. I'm not doing it for a political statement or anything. I'm doing it because this woman inspired me a lot and has been a role model to the way she's conducted herself, especially over the last 3 years. And before that, in her public life, to what she has put up with this week when it was, she did a photo shoot that showed her knitting, and she was knitting a toy for the new royal baby. And the flack she copped for that because women knit and old women knit, and then knitters apparently, none I saw on Ravelry, but people apparently elsewhere said, that's not how you knit. You don't knit like that. That's not how you hold the wool. That's not the sort of knitting needles you use. And, oh man, it just broke my heart to see some of the stuff that she's gone through, the dignity and the poise that she's shown throughout it, regardless of what you believe of her politics, the way she's held herself, I believe, as a human being, has been inspirational for me, and therefore there's going to be a colourway, which is going to be sent to her as well. I did meet her last year, it was last year, and I was wearing my Zuzu's petals, and she commented on it, and she'd just been on holidays, and I said, I hope you got some knitting, and she goes, oh, of course I did. So, yeah. Anyway, I think, oh, that was the other thing I just scribbled down before. If you are after a new podcast from Australia, Susie Hausfrau, which is an online yarn shop out of Canberra. Renee from Susie Hausfrau, I think it's Renee. I maybe had that wrong. If I do, I really apologise. Has a new audio podcast up, which is putting out every Tuesday. I listened to the first episode on Tuesday. She had an interview with one of the ladies behind Millamia Yarns from the UK. Really, really interesting chat. And yeah, I encourage you to look that one up. If you are after an interesting Australian podcast that talks about things other than projects, etc. at the moment, although I can't really say that just based on one episode. That one episode was really good and really well put together. So, yay! Yay for the Aussies. Really looking forward to catching up on the latest episode from Willow Ferry, meeting beautiful little Charlie through her podcast, which I think she's got a new episode out too. So go the Aussies, go the New Zealanders, go everyone wherever you are. And that's going to be it for now. So until next time, I'm off to the gym. I've just looked at the time. I went back to the gym on Tuesday. My legs are killing me, but I know I need to go to the gym to work out some of the excess stuff. What's it called? That seizes up your legs. Until next time, today is Thursday. Next week I do hope to record on Tuesday or Wednesday, but it may not happen. I don't know when I'm going to record. I may record Thursday, but it's going to be my birthday. Anyway, until then, I'm going to say, Uru, cheers.